So you and I have been playing D&D a long time. I expect sometimes in your group you've had to teach a couple of people how to play D&D, right? Or at least a strong refresher course as to how to play D&D,
I've
perhaps?
taught people. I DM'd a game for Topher Grace and Chelsea Handler once. So yeah, I taught kids. I'm on the board of trustees at Pittsburgh Children's Hospital, and I started a Dungeons and Dragons club there for the kids who are left in the hospital for months at a time without their parents or friends. And I taught them how to play so that they could keep playing and have fun during the day and escape from their everyday issues. And I know that the kids I taught are still playing because they stay in touch. And I, and so yeah, that's been fun. My group that I DM for is comprised entirely of people that played when they were younger and then took a long break. Except I have one player, Ryan Vernier, who played the whole way through, but he's the only one. Everybody else had a hiatus. So a bit of it was like giving a refresher, but also teaching 5e
Mm-hmm.
basically and how that works. But most of them have taken to it like, fish in water. They're pretty on it to the point where they're trying to get a +1 any way they possibly can. So they hammer me and you know with their plots to break the game.
So you do have like this very wide spectrum of people, like in the way that you have to teach people D&D. Do you have any recommendations when you're teaching someone who is like either a kid or someone who's completely new or someone who's a little bit rusty? You are in this kind of position of like, okay, you've had to be an ambassador. You've had to also be a teacher in terms of D&D.
Yeah, I think for me, I try to. I mean, I can talk a lot about how to be a better player or learn how to play the game, but I think personally, my energy is best spent like awakening a potential dungeon master because I think that's something that people see as daunting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's not for everybody. I don't think everybody's built to be a dungeon master. I mean, that makes sense. There's so many football players on the field, and only one of them is the quarterback.
Right.
You know, but I think people that have that type of brain or have stories or to tell scenarios as whimsical as you can get, as serious as in tone as you can get. And I'm always interested in all in somebody who's looking to do that. And what I would tell that person is you can stay only a chapter ahead of the rest of the class. Meaning if you start dungeon mastering at a very low level, at level 1, as long as you know what those abilities are and can handle that, I think you can stay a chapter ahead. Something like the starter kit has a fantastic adventure that starts very small and very manageable and then expands. I think that's really a great way to do it. In fact, I think that's probably the easiest and best way to do it. But from there, there's also the non-box set approach, which is Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, ready to go. And I would also say to people, like, I know nobody wants to hear it, but like, have you ever read the Dungeon Master's Guide? Like, have you read it?
It's a pretty good book.
Do you
I
know what's
highly
in it?
recommend it.
The whole chapter about planar travel. Have you read it? Do you know? So I hear a lot of people that have like problems with lore or problems with understanding the game, or and it's all in there. But the other side of it is that just understand there's a margin of error. Like I've been doing it since I was a kid. I was 9, 10 years old trying to figure out how to dungeon master. I just got in there and did it. And it's okay to be sloppy, and it's okay to really shoot. I mean, heck, there's so many adventures that go by where I'm like, I could have done that. I missed that. And I'm sure you do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. It's
Um,
it was especially when I was going to film school. I returned to D&D. I'm like, oh, I can be a showrunner. Only I don't have to spend millions of dollars to bankroll this entire thing. I
Yeah.
can just hold my friends hostage. I kill them occasionally, and I get to direct my own show.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's fun because anything that goes on in your life then winds up in the game. You know, I DM for my younger brother who is 4 years younger than me. I mean, he's coming up on 40. He's going to be 40 years old. It's my younger brother. And it's like, you know, he laughs because he sees the connections to some cartoon I was watching, some show I was watching, and all of a sudden that character pops up in the game. Some sketch I watched on Saturday Night Live 20 years ago winds up being the Old West prospector. Ooh, they freed from the cage, you know, and now he's back at their hideout, and ooh, does anybody want any bacon? Ooh, you know, and he's cooking in the morning, and now they have this NPC character that's, you know, ooh, my name's Gus Chiggins. Ooh, Chiggins. And, you know, they're like, so now Gus Chiggins cooks some breakfast. And, you know, my brother knows where all that stuff comes from in my brain. So he's always laughing. Like, I remember like The Octopus Teacher. Have you watched this documentary on Netflix?
Oh, I did. I watched that whole thing. I was obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, Vince Vaughn's character, his father grew, you know, Vince and his father, you know, live in this very small fishing community, which is off the kind of like middle of the Sword Coast. And then he became an adventurer, and he plays this divine soul sorcerer who went off to become an adventurer, found out that he, you know, really played a part in this segment of this war against Tiamat's armies, and now has come back to the town to meet his father. And his father was like, come, take a morning swim with me. And my brother just starts holding his head, and he's like, swim through the kelp forest with me, my son. And so they went and swam in this kelp forest. And, you know, in My Octopus Teacher, the whole thing is like, you're not supposed to interfere with nature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the shark came around and he wouldn't.
Yeah, you wouldn't
like,
save the octopus. Yeah.
The shark off. And, you know, Sophia and I are watching it and we're like, kill the shark.
Yeah.
That's your friend.
Yeah, this guy.
Kill it.
Yeah, Megan and I were kind of screaming at the screen, and like I get the morality of it, but I don't know that I could watch that happen.
Right. And so, you know, that was the big, I think a lot of people had this visceral reaction to his like hands-off approach. And so, you know, I made Vince's father and him go swim through the kelp forest. It was very obvious to my brother what was going on. And they went out to go meet Inky, the octopus friend of his dad. And the shark swam up, and his father sent like a shockwave to shock the shark and send it away. And, you know, that was to illustrate the fact that Tiamat was this force of chaos and nature, and that for Tiamat to be released, that's actually the natural order of things.
Mm-hmm.
So in my campaign, there is someone out there who has figured out how to prolong the cosmic cycle so that the universe doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It only has a beginning and a middle, and the middle just keeps spiraling so that this being could stay in power, while Tiamat releasing means the end of the world. She will end the cycle.
Right.
And so there's an idea that like Vince's character should interfere with nature and not be afraid to do that. But I just seen The Octopus Teacher, so I kind of made this whole speech from his father in conversation about the cosmos and Tiamat underwater with this little octopus. And, you know, so I would say, rounding back, I would say to Dungeon Masters, like, you know, just anything that strikes you as fun and funny, or, you know, inspiration, just put it in your game. Just write it, put it in your game, like throw it in there. I mean, the satanic squirrel in South Park is every squirrel that George's druid talks to. You know, oh, is there a squirrel event? Well, sure there is. You know, and so you just draw from whatever's going on in your life, and it becomes that story with your friends, and your friends just laugh because they get all these inside jokes that you're throwing at them.
What is it like right now for you? Because you have a couple of groups that you play with every week, and then the pandemic happened. How did this shift everything for you?
I had to hurry up and learn how to use Roll20. So I had to learn how to use the software. Also, my campaign is for the one that I DM for my Friday night game is 11 players. And to give you context, any D&D module is balanced for 4 players, 4 players and a DM.
Right.
Which is why, boss monsters have 3 legendary actions. Well, that's because it's balanced for 4, so that basically your dragon gets to go after every turn. So when you have 11, things need to be changed. You need to have an understanding of the rules and understand what's meant, so that, well, my dragon now needs 10 legendary actions to be competitive. And I have to juice hit points. Hit points are a suggestion in the book, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. But no, the red dragon has this many hit points. It's like, no, that's an average. You can juice it and go to max. So a lot of the times I go to the max. I also, when your players get up to a high level, the air starts getting very thin in 5th edition. And what I mean by that is, a dungeon master has to really adjust to those high level campaigns, because it's so hard to kill a player in 5th edition. Now, I'm not saying I'm out there trying to kill a player, but I'm saying that
but you are.
But I mean, I'm not saying that I'm trying to do that. But if you go back to earlier editions, where experience points, like the tide rising, where all the players rise at initiative, that didn't happen. There were no death saves. There wasn't this abundance of potions that you could feed. When somebody was dead, you were dead.
Right.
And so there was a real fear, and there were monsters that would drain levels of experience. So you might go into a dungeon at level 6, you come out at level 1.
Yeah.
If you rolled a character that had a 3 for strength, sorry.
That's if that's like a specter or a wraith, you're out of luck.
Yeah. Or if you rolled and you had a character with 1 hit point. I remember a friend of mine had a character at first level that had 1 hit point. But it was so much fun, and so to watch him play, and it was so scary because he had to try to survive to get to that next level and get the hit point bump. And I thought that made for very fun gameplay, and I think that you really realized how fun the game is to play. Whereas I think with an emphasis on storytelling per se, or trying to eradicate that fear of losing your character, I think what's happened is when the players get to a higher level, they're godlike. And so a DM, I mean, so 11 players at, let's call it 12th level, they might have a battle that goes on for 4 weeks. And when I say 4 weeks, I mean 24 hours worth of gaming to get them to the place where now they're scared. Now they're depleted of spell slots. And, it's intense. You're plotting out a war every single adventure. And then from there, I like to homebrew as I need it. If I have an inspiration for a story arc, or I don't want my players to go through Castle Neritar. I'd rather have them have to deal with the twin black dragons who live in the Mirror of Dead Men that get skipped in Tyranny. I want to have, so I build that encounter out. The trick is now I have to build proprietary maps within Roll20, which takes a little bit of figuring out. I think the other side of it, as a player on Roll20, the campaign that I'm in is, we're doing Undermountain, Mad Mage, which is a pretty straight dungeon crawl. So, so that one, and the DM for that campaign, this guy Thor Nye, he's a great DM. Yeah, I think Thor. So Thor's very by the book, and I enjoy that because when you are DM'd by Thor, you really get a sense that this is what Wizards meant. This is the adventure. You really get to experience the adventure as it was meant by the people that came up with it. And I appreciate that a lot. I think, which is why he's somebody that the company always goes to play test, which is actually how that game started.
Oh,
We were
wow.
one of the play test groups for Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So we were actually giving notes as to because some stuff happened that like almost broke the game, and like my character wound up with the Stone of Galore and never gave it back because I hit a series of natural 20s and they couldn't get it from me because it was like I kept hitting all these 20s, so you can't take it. And so we were writing, hey, this could happen, blah 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 blah. But so those are the two games that I play in.
Did it become more important for all the players to like have that meetup? Like more than ever. I know like you've got a great setup and you've got that huge desk and everything else. But I mean that huge table for everyone to play D&D around, and it's really fun and epic. But like they must have just been excited just to keep going.
Well, I think it. Well, I know that it, especially once the summer hit and we realized that we weren't going back to normal, or that we weren't. This wasn't summer vacation. This is a new normal that we all have to figure out. I think it really became even more important to commune and have a social group, a club that we could go and talk to and keep up with and say hey with and say hey to, because we were all locked at home. So it became, and even at the beginning of pandemic, they asked me to expand the game to 2 nights a week. So, I didn't have, like I said, it was kind of like a break from work. The entire entertainment industry was off. So there wasn't really much for me to do. And so I was spending most of my days prepping and running 2 games a week. And it was just such a great escape from what was going on in the world. So yeah, I know that it served as that for the guys in my group.